Hey, welcome back. And if you're new here, my name's Christina Kent, and I'm an artist based out of San Francisco. Today I'm going to be doing some plein air painting at the beautiful Rockaway Beach in Northern California. Whenever I go to a site to do some plein air painting, there's always the question of what am I going to paint? So for this, I like to use my little cardboard viewfinder, and I think one of the biggest challenges with plein air painting is we look at the landscape and we just see so much, like we kind of want to fit it all into one painting, or at least I do. And so having a viewfinder like this, it really helps me identify the compositions that I want to make. I ultimately settled on this relatively simple composition. We have the rocks that are kind of coming out into the water, and then we're not even really seeing the beach. The waves are crashing down a little bit, but we're not seeing the sand actually. I liked the shapes of the rocks, and then I liked how there would be a lot of water with some highlights on it that can kind of move the eye around and also give me some space to create some abstract shapes in the water. So here's my basic setup, and if you want an overview of my plein air painting kit, be sure to check out that video that I'll link here. For my colors for this one, I'm going to be using something pretty similar to my standard palette. So I have titanium white, and then I have a cadmium yellow, a cadmium red, alizarin crimson, cobalt teal, ultramarine blue, sap green, and burnt sienna. Oh, and also yellow ochre. I'd start my drawing with the burnt sienna, and so here I just really am trying to simply sketch out the basic shapes of the rocks. I'm not really trying to get into where the waves are, and so you can see that I'm just making a very simple marking of the overall composition. Next, I jump into color, and as usual, I like to start with the darker colors first. So I start by mixing a very, almost like a purplish gray color for the dark colors of the rock. I always feel like, if you're not sure about mixing a color, try it out, put it on the canvas, and see how it looks, and you can usually adjust it over time. Color is really relative, so when you do put down one color, you might like the way it looks, or you might dislike it, and then you put down some other colors, and your perception of it changes. So I always think about it as like this evolving process. I'm trying to think about how the colors are working together, rather than just thinking of them as absolutes. Then I'm able to move on to starting to fill in the next darkest color, which is the color of the water. It's not exactly the main part of the composition, but it does take up a lot of space in the composition, and I kind of want it to be like a resting place for your eyes in this composition. I'm mixing some different sort of hues of blues and blue greens that I can use that are all like fairly similar. Like I still want the water to appear as kind of this unified body of water, but I want there to be some kind of changes in hues, changes in saturation that I feel like will increase the visual interest, and it'll kind of give your eye some nice nuances to look at when you're looking at the foreground. furthest back, I'm putting in the darkest blues, and then they get a little bit lighter as they come closer to the foreground. Once I've filled in the basic colors for the water, then I move on to the sky, which I'm noticing is a slightly more purpley blue than the water. And I didn't film this part, but I mixed some neutrals for the rocks and for the highlights, a nice light gray for the highlights of the waves coming in. So that finishes up my block in. Once the block in is done, then I start to use my palette knife to add some kind of nuance to the image, to break up the shapes that I've created, to change the edges of the shapes so I don't have all of these sharp edges created by the brushstrokes, but instead I'm able to get these edges that are softer or that have a very interesting texture to them. I also find that I really like it for creating kind of like smudging some of these lighter highlights to create that effect of either waves crashing against the rocks or just kind of like the shine, like the sun as it shimmers on top of the water. That's one of the really hard things about painting water, is that there's just like all of these little reflections and these kind of shimmering points of brightness, and I don't want to paint all of those individual reflections, but instead I want to create the feeling of light on the water. I really love just the variety of marks that you can get from the palette knife, and how I never quite know exactly what sort of mark it's going to make. So yeah, this is the final outcome. Here's how the painting turned out, and here you can see it with the inspiration in the background. I'm really happy with this painting. I think there's a lot of cool things going on with the texture. Like, I think having kind of this rough texture also complements nicely with the rocks in the scene and the waves that are kind of crashing on the beach. I love the colors that I captured in the water in the foreground. Like, we have a really nice mix of hues of slightly warmer tones. I even have some browns in the foreground that I think just contrast really nicely with the bluer tones, and just gives like a unifying feeling to the whole image. So yeah, that's all I have for today. I hope you liked this video. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments, and if you have any questions, feel free to post them below. And as always, a huge shout out to my supporters on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for supporting my work and making these videos happen. If you like my art, if you like my videos, and you want to help me make more, check out my Patreon at the link. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.